todos, así que estamos el día de hoy otra vez con la información de impuestos del 2026. ¿Qué es lo que puedes hacer? We are now again for another week. Yes, I attorney and legal aid in income office, and which she can explain a little bit more. Today we are going to talk about data and how safe, how accessible it is to technically prepare your taxes for yourself. Que vamos a hablar sobre los programas Vita que hay a nivel de todo el estado, qué tan seguros son y los softwares que te permiten hacer tus impuestos directamente. Así que voy a compartir esto. Me permiten un minuto. Thank you, Aisha. Just a minute. Well, welcome, Aisha. Thank you again. With us, we are technically in a good time, 5 o'clock Central Time. Have the new season start. We just started technically February, but now we have already March. So many people question how safe is to the beta sites. And obviously, beta sites is a service provided from the Department of Revenue and the IRS all around the state. Yes. Most people, the question is how safe is and how they can actually access. We are going to show how they can, but you can explain a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. So going to the volunteer income tax assistance, the VITA sites, they're a really great resource for people because they allow you to get free tax preparation by professionals that are vetted, that you can trust with your information. And that will be able to prepare tax returns for you that will help maximize the refund that you're able to get and answer any questions that you might have. I find the easiest way to find a VITA site is by going to the Minnesota Department of Revenue website. So it's revenue.state.mn.us. And in the search bar, you just search free tax preparation, click on the first link, and then it's a database that you can search by zip code, county, language. It's really a helpful tool.
Okay. Yeah, actually, we can share how they look like, because some people, they are afraid to even to get information, especially now with this a lot of fraud going on, and technically are able to, because we cannot see it. I think there is some kind of issue with the page, but it is fine. We can just back, and then we can go to the video and the notes, or you will see information in the description too. And now the second question, how safe is to prepare your taxes for yourself with the softwares available for a lot of taxpayers?
Yeah. So if you're not able to get to a VITA site, or maybe they don't have an appointment available, things are already getting scheduled up for the filing season here, or, if you just prefer to do it on your own, there's the free file program on the IRS website that I recommend people utilize if they are eligible for it. It's a household size $99,000 or less income, and it's a very helpful free program, again, to file on your own. I do caution people, using things like TurboTax and H&R Block and different things like that to just make sure that you're using the correct program when you're searching online, and make sure that you're inputting all your information correctly, and just know that, I mean, with anything, there's always the chance of identity theft and things like that, but, it is minimized, when you go through legitimate, like, links and sources and things like that.
Perfect. And the question, so the most important question people they are doing, they are asking is, lo que los latinos están haciendo, ¿qué pasa si te roban la identidad? Alguien está usando el seguro social y te llega un bill del IRS. My question is, somebody is using your social security number to work and you suddenly got a bill from the IRS, what you can do?
Yeah, that's a really great question because that happens to quite a few of my clients. Either, their social security number was taken and someone was working under their social security number, or someone filed a tax return under their social security number that they didn't file. So in both situations, when you had your identity stolen for tax purposes, there's actually a form called a 14039. It's an identity theft affidavit, and you file it with the IRS, just explaining what happened, and just including all of your information, anything that if you reported it, anything like that. You just include that information. It can take up to 2 years for a decision to be made, but during that time, your the IRS shouldn't be trying to collect against you or do any sort of action against you if if you got like a tax bill, and it should be able to be resolved. With just filing that form. There are some other options, but those would be, if you find yourself in a more complex situation, you can reach out to a legal services provider who can give you some advice on steps in your specific situation.
Perfect. Now, how somebody can recover it without, we hear, especially in the Spanish community, some people, they must to even change their social security number. Somebody is using, and unfortunately, at some point you owe so much money, and there's nothing you can do. How you are an attorney, Aisha is an attorney from it, and how you navigate and how a player can navigate the kind of cases.
Yeah, so especially there's a couple different things. Something people can do just to be proactive in situations even is to get what's called an identity protection pin, an IP pin from the IRS, which is just a number that's required to be listed like on a tax return, for example. And so no one can like file with your information or use your information for tax purposes without that number, and you get a new one every year. So that's just one thing I recommend to people, that you can be proactive with. If the situation's kind of already happened, you can still get an IP pin to make sure it doesn't like continue to happen. And then, really, it's so hard to get a hold of someone at the IRS, right? Like, but just doing your best to, if you, find out about the situation, do the identity theft affidavit, contact the IRS. Other times, what I've done is the IRS will send notices, pay attention to those. And if, you contact the IRS, explain your situation, if you're still not they're still not getting it, if you're not still able to like make progress, that's when I
My, sorry.
there you go. But yeah, I would just talk to an attorney or because you can go to US tax court sometimes, and that would be the fastest way to resolve it.
Perfect. Now, the order right now is the new rules. Is a mandatory. People they must to have the bank account in order to either pay, receive your credit. And what is your recommendation? Because some people they cannot open their bank account.
Yeah.
of money, or
Yeah.
they are afraid about being garnished, probably for any recommendation, since this point is mandatory, what they can do.
Yeah, it's especially hard now beginning with this tax year that they're not doing the paper checks, right? And that they're doing the electronic refunds. What I've been recommending to people, places like Prepare and Prosper in the cities and other organizations are helping people with banking needs. So I, recommend first reaching out within the community and see if there are resources there. You can also, some people have had success with certain apps and linking that. Like as long as you have a routing number and like an account number, it doesn't have to be a traditional bank account.
Okay.
Otherwise, as kind of last option, if you have someone that you trust, right, to have the money deposited and that you'll get the money, I always, caveat that, be, very thoughtful. It can be someone else's bank account as long as you have access to it and know that you're going to get the funds.
Now, the other question is, when the household or member, one of the family members, they try to technically use the dependent, and that's for technically allowed, and how somebody can actually protect the kids or protect themselves to technically be, taking the credit for this year, what they can do, how they can protect themselves.
So if I've had this come up as well with clients where someone's claiming them as a dependent or, putting them on a tax return or claiming, certain children as dependents. And they aren't, like you're saying, they're not eligible to actually do that. Again, one thing you can do is you can also get the identity protection pins for children. So you can make sure that in order to claim the dependent, a person would have to have that identity protection pin number. So that will kind of stop people like in the future from being able to do that for both yourself and any dependents. Otherwise, if it's a situation where, someone's claiming you, but you want to file your own tax return, or someone's claiming your children and you're like, nope, they're like living with me, like I'm the one who's eligible to claim them, paper file a tax return. You might not be able to electronically do anything, it might shut you out, right? 'Cause it's saying this dependent's already been claimed, but you can still file by paper. And I would just write an explanation like with it, so send in your tax return, and then the IRS will kind of review things, might ask for documentation of certain things, so I just always tell parents, like, especially, just like keep some of those school letters, keep some medical records for each year, just to show that the children live with you is usually the biggest hurdle with the IRS. So just like keep some letters, keep them in a folder, or whatever your, drive on your computer, or anything like that. And yeah, so I really recommend that people either have identity protection pins or that they paper file if they're in that situation.
Perfect. Now we're going to talk about credit again. We are going to talk about all the credit. People still not realize there is a lot of money on the table, and technically they are not using. What is most, you will see, electorals, what is the most important families they don't even realize they have?
Yeah, I'd say there are two major credits that come to mind that leave a lot of money on the table if people don't take advantage of them. The first one is the K through 12 subtraction and credit. They're actually two separate things. There's a subtraction and then there's a credit. But it's for like school supplies, education materials, just, education software, laptops up to $200, things like that, a lot of people don't realize they have to buy those school supplies for their children. And on both, on the Minnesota level, you're able to, up to a certain amount, subtract that amount, like from your tax return so that it reduces the amount that you would owe in taxes, and then you can also claim a credit, which would result in a larger refund potentially. So that one just does require receipts. And so I always mention that now because, people might not have them all from last year. You probably have some, but maybe you don't have them all. But start keeping them now for this year, and then have them ready for the next filing season. So I always recommend that because a lot of people don't realize that's an option. And then the Minnesota Child Tax Credit, right? I mean, it's a premier credit, first time with advanced payments on a state level in the nation. And it's a lot of money for families,
Yeah.
per child. And I really recommend that, you have to file a tax return to get it. It doesn't require that you have income. So even if you don't have income coming in, maybe you just have some benefits, wouldn't normally file a tax return, you can still take advantage of that. There's no limit on the number of dependents like other credits. So it's a lot of money for families that can really help lift them up, during these especially hard times.
Perfect. Now, did you mention that they need the receipt? What about if they have the proof on the credit card, or they make, I don't know,
Yeah.
of all the expenses?
Yeah, like it kind of like for some things, I mean, you can use like if it was buying a software program or, like certain camps qualify or things that you can show on your bank statement, like this is clearly this educational expense. You can use those, bank statements, credit card statements, anything like that. But things like school supplies themselves, it would be a little harder to prove unless you like bought them individually or different things like that. So I really recommend like keeping receipts, and like don't guesstimate though. Like, people are like, oh, I probably spent about $500 on school supplies this year,
Yes.
right?
Yes.
That's what you don't want to do. Yeah.
Yes. Now we are going to talk today about your legal aid. You are the attorney for, everybody. If they have a question, what Aisha, she's an attorney. That's attorney. In case you have any question regarding that attorney, you can reach legal aid. Can
Mhm.
you explain to us what legal is? I mean, they have a different department, but
Yeah.
specifically department, how can actually reach each organization.
Yeah, so legal aid is one of the largest, legal aid organizations, Minnesota Legal Aid in the state. We actually cover 22 counties in central Minnesota, and then with the Minnesota Disability Law Center and the LITC, we actually cover the whole state, which is really great. So yeah, you can
Wow.
see our website, and we have on the Minnesota Disability Law Center, we have units on housing, immigration, benefits, youth and family law, seniors, consumer, home ownership. There's just so many different units, right? And it's a really great resource for free civil legal services. And so it's also the home of the legal aid low income taxpayer clinic, which is what I'm the director of. And so it's, really great resource. If you have any tax questions, you're able to reach out to us. And you're able to you can do an online like questionnaire, and someone from intake will contact you. or you can call our intake line, and get a hold of someone, from intake. And then you can, also, like, if you see us in the community, you can come to pop-up clinics and different things like that and talk to an attorney.
Perfect. Then housing is huge, tax is huge
Yeah.
this year. Technically, services, especially in Minnesota, they are huge, and definitely legal aid is. How many people working in legal aid, Aisha?
Oh my gosh. I know that we have, because we are also the Minnesota Disability Law Center, and we have locations in like 5 or 6 different parts of the state, actually. Total, it's well over 200 like employees at Legal Aid. We have like over 100 attorneys. Like it's really great. And what's really nice is if you are in like the Minneapolis area, we have community clinics at some community centers. So people can come in with questions there on any legal, like civil legal issue, and get help. So definitely always, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to our intake. If it's not an area that, MMLA does, legal aid does, or serves, so like intake will refer you to someone who can help. You're not left without some sort of resource.
And the other question is, people asking, okay, I am reaching a non-profit organization, then and usually they ask how much money they make, and what is the rules regarding how much money they can do, and they can actually access to this service, because sometimes you only make probably 2 or 3 about what they ask for,
Yeah.
what they can do.
Yeah. Yeah, and so it can be hard. I know, each unit has its own income guidelines, and it depends on household size in the end. Some of them also take into account your expenses, like rent and different things like that, compared to your income, compared to the area that you live in, for a median, like, household range. So it really depends. I will say for the tax clinic, we're at the highest income level of like the legal aids. We're at 250% of the
Oh,
federal
wow.
poverty guidelines. So for an individual, that's almost 40,000, and then it goes up. But we give advice regardless of income. So you can call and, make above that 250%, and we'll still be able to give you some advice, point you in the right direction, and be able to talk with you and talk through your issue. So, and then, if you call on a different legal services issue, for one of those other units, and if you're, just above income, they're still able to give you resources that you might not have known about before.
Perfect, perfect. Okay, thank you for your time. I mean, this was
Yeah.
amazing. So fast, already 23 minutes, and
Yes.
it's perfect. Thank you so much again. Again, legally, remember, you have a lot of credits. Tenemos muchos créditos fiscales para este año. Aprovechen.
Mhm.
Es bien importante porque me quedando, piensa que por no hacerlo, pero recuerden, pueden perder esos créditos. I work for my community or for people.
Yes, I think, just really take advantage of all the tax resources that are out there. If you have questions, contact someone, ask those questions, and look for, information like this, live sessions where you can ask questions, learn information. There's a lot of resources, so definitely take advantage of them.
Thank you so much. And well,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you, Aisha. Bye.
Thanks.